Hi, I'm Martin Felsen. Welcome to City Design, where we explore how we shape cities and how cities shape us. This episode, Cities of Kings and Gods, is the second in a series on city history. Last episode, we explored the prehistoric roots of urban life, burial grounds and ceremonial caves, the domestication of nature, and social insects that built complex cities millions of years before we did. Now we move forward to the time when small farming villages emerged into something entirely new, the city. Today, cities explode outward, sprawling across the landscape. But the first cities moved in the opposite direction. They were implosions, people and their beliefs compressed behind thick walls under the command of gods and kings. So how did it happen? And what were the costs? With the rise of agriculture, humans began to settle in the great river valleys, the so-called cradles of civilization, the Tigris and Euphrates in Mesopotamia, the Nile in Egypt, the Indus Valley in modern-day Pakistan and India, the Yellow and Yangtze rivers in China. Fertile soil and reliable fresh water meant a steady supply of food, and steady food meant people could stay put. As villages grew, people began to specialize. Fishermen, miners, woodworkers refined their tools and skills. Shipbuilders and engineers followed. Merchants and artisans built up their expertise. Each new occupation created demand for new facilities, places to work, trade, and store goods. The village was becoming something more complex, more than the sum of its parts. Individuals in new roles, interacting together, produced a collective intelligence no single person could achieve alone. At some turning point, the familiar local gods, close to the home, close to the soil, were outranked by more distant and awesome cosmic forces. The sun, the moon, the thunderstorm, and the waters needed for life. The local chieftain, likely a gifted and probably feared hunter, was elevated to king, guardian of the community shrine, endowed with divine authority to commune with the distant sky gods and earth gods. Over time, neighbors were no longer equals. Most were reduced to subjects, supervised by governors, scribes, and soldiers, all answerable to the king. And the farmer? It was no longer enough to feed his family or his village. Now he had to produce a large surplus to support a growing class of royal and priestly officials. From this new complexity, a higher unity emerged. The emerging city stimulated invention and intensive agriculture, enabling food surpluses that still drive urban growth today. Time for a timeline check. Let's situate ourselves between ancient prehistory and the emergence of AI. This episode focuses on cities forming roughly around 3000 BCE in Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley. This was a period of extraordinary innovation. Mesopotamians developed the wheel and advanced mathematics, a base 60 system that gave us the 60-second minute, the 60-minute hour, and the 360-degree circle. The Babylonians used that math to map the sky. They divided the year into 12 periods, each named for a prominent constellation, a tradition the Greeks later adopted to create the zodiac. They divided the week into 7 days, each named for a god embodied by one of 7 stellar objects. Writing started simply in Mesopotamia, images pressed into wet clay to track wealth. Around 3000 BCE, these marks had evolved into a sophisticated writing system we now call cuneiform. Cuneiform was so adaptable that it was used for thousands of years to record trade, literature, and laws in several different languages. For the first time, human thought could outlast human memory. And with writing, what story did humanity first record? The Epic of Gilgamesh, our oldest surviving work of narrative literature. The poem is about a city and its king. It opens by praising the mighty walls of Uruk. One of the first stories ever written down was, essentially, an urban story. Today, when we think about cities, we think about growth, outward expansion, sprawl. The modern city has burst open, scattering people and institutions across the landscape. But the first cities didn't expand outward. They did the opposite. They imploded. Once scattered across river valleys, thousands of villagers mobilized and assembled around and behind the fortified walls of the first cities. These cities were powered by the greatest machine ever assembled. It wasn't made of stone or wood, it was made of people. Organized human labor, coordinated by centralized authority. This machine remains largely invisible to today's archaeologists because its key components, human bodies, have long since turned to dust. This human workforce redirected nature itself, building canals, raising mounds and stone ziggurats, temples, palaces, and pyramids on a scale never before imagined. The city was the compact container that made this implosion possible. Its form held these new energies together, focused their objectives, and elevated their accomplishments. At the center of the new city was the citadel, an elevated, fortified, strategic hub, political and religious, that oversaw everything orbiting around it. In Mesopotamia, the ancient city of Erbilum, now the citadel of Erbil, sits on a massive oval mound 100 feet high, built up over millennia. At Uruk, religious and political power concentrated in a single elevated compound, the White Temple and a new ziggurat serving as lookout, sacred shrine, and center of administration. The citadel's activities were orchestrated by the king. He channeled the city's emerging powers through the palace and the temple. The role of the king had evolved, from protecting the village as a hunter to gathering tribute as a ruler. As his powers grew, his subjects' autonomy shrank accordingly. The citadel was fortified against invaders, but it was also a storehouse where the spoils of kingship could be kept safe from resentful subjects below. After all, the king oversaw agricultural production. He also controlled the surplus. Surrounded by natural abundance, the king created artificial scarcity and a system of dependence built on top of it. The city had invented a new economy of organized exploitation, and it ran counter to everything the villagers had known. But raw coercion alone has its limits. To win compliance without constant enforcement, rulers had to create at least the appearance of generosity. In the Indus Valley city of Mohenjo-Daro, rulers built the Great Bath, a ritual bathing complex for the city's population. The city provided its inhabitants with fresh water and a sophisticated sanitation network that used gravity to carry waste away. But plumbing can only get a leader so far. With the backing of a rising caste of priests, a king could tap into something far more powerful than infrastructure: divine sanction and cosmic authority. By leveraging the sacred through shared power and purpose, a king could reshape himself into a god. Ancient cities were symbolic worlds, representing not just a people, but their entire belief system. The village had been grounded in the earth. The city positioned its foundations in the heavens. Belief in the eternal expanded the possibility of human existence on earth and beyond. The city embodied all of it: the land, the cosmos, and its gods. The ancient Egyptian god Ptah, god of architects and founder of cities, extended that privilege to mortal rulers. And the gods chose kings to build their cities. Ceremonial lion griffins and winged beings projected the power and divine legitimacy of kings. The ancient king list of Sumer records that 5 kings, appointed by the gods, were given 5 cities: Eridu, Bad Tabira, Larak, Sippar, and Shuruppak. Eridu, the oldest, was said to be created by the gods to establish order and paradise on earth. The myth of Eridu was likely the model for the biblical Garden of Eden. This remarkable modern scroll, charting Christian biblical history, depicts Eden's creation around 4004 BCE, roughly the same period as the Mesopotamian and Indus Valley cities that we're discussing. Whether appointed by gods or built by mortal hands, ancient cities share a common architectural language. The Great Ziggurat of Ur is an iconic example. Ancient citadels typically contained at least 3 monumental structures: the palace, the temple, and the granary. At Ur, the precinct included the shrine of the moon god Nana and the administrative stronghold, which oversaw much of Mesopotamia. In the Indus Valley, Harappa's raised citadel was protected by thick brick walls, vastly out of proportion to any military threat of the time. Their symbolic purpose almost certainly preceded their military function. A new intellectual class emerged to run the citadel: palace technocrats, magicians, diviners, doctors, and scribes. They helped turn the shrine into a capital. The earliest clay tablets found at Uruk were the scribes' accounting records, memoranda to organize the citadel as workshop and warehouse. In return for their service, the king's advisors received security, status, and collective dwellings. But proximity to power sometimes came at a price. In the city of Ur, some kings were buried with their attendants. These great death pits contained dozens of people arranged in rows, believed to have been sacrificed or to have taken poison to accompany their rulers into the afterlife. Extravagant goods lay alongside the dead like this bull-headed lyre. The citadel and the great temple were built to fuse divinity and royalty in stone. The sheer magnitude of these temples, with their extravagances, displayed the powers of both God and king. That some degree of law and order emerged from the ancient city is early proof of its civilizing power. The Code of Hammurabi is a legal landmark from this period. It's inscribed on this 7.5-foot stone pillar. Created by the Amorite king of the Old Babylonian Empire, the code consists of 282 laws. One of the earliest and most complete legal codes, designed to unify a small empire through consistent justice. But for a vivid illustration of how law actually built a city, consider the story of Deioces, as told by the Greek historian Herodotus. Herodotus wrote this account in a later period, largely free from the supernatural ideas that shaped early Mesopotamia. It reads almost like a modern story of justice and political ascent. The Medes were scattered across villages. Disorder and violence were everywhere. Deioces, a local counselor, gained a reputation for even-handed, fearless justice. People from neighboring villages began coming to him for judgment. The demand for his decisions grew so constant, so necessary, that they made him their supreme ruler. His first act? Build a palace and city suitable for a king, Ecbatana. Deioces then ordered, and this is key, that other settlements be neglected. A deliberate monopoly, economic and political. This strategy has been utilized for urban growth throughout history. The royal citadel at Ecbatana concentrated people and shrank physical distance, but the walls were also designed to set the king apart. Density alongside hierarchy. This combination remains a defining feature of urban culture today. By unifying behavior through law, life in Ecbatana prospered as it could not prosper elsewhere. What started as subtle coercion gradually became cooperation. But law alone wasn't enough. Law needed religion. Without religion's hold on the spirit, walls alone could have never succeeded in shaping character as well as controlling activity. Without religion, the city walls would have felt like a prison, and its inhabitants would have had only one ambition: to overthrow their rulers and escape. Instead, the early city worked like a single, vast household, everyone under one roof, answerable to one authority. Power was the engine of the new city. Increasingly, that power was shaped and directed by balancing law, religion, and the bonds of social cooperation. Destruction has always been part of the growth of civilization. Why has conflict been so persistent? One early reason: certain kinds of violence were believed to appease the gods and secure supernatural favor, ensuring agricultural abundance. Sacrifice, a pre-war ritual aimed to guarantee good harvests despite nature's stubbornness. Some cultures considered human sacrifice especially effective, but sacrificing your own people is costly and counterproductive. Far better to sacrifice captives taken in conflict. Enemy prisoners were frequently offered to the gods. In ancient Mesopotamia, Sumerian raids into the northern mountains for natural resources also brought back captives who would make useful sacrifices. The Sumerian word for slave roughly translates as foreign mountain woman. Reprisals escalated, hostilities deepened, the scope of war kept expanding. Centralized military control, systematic robbery, predatory behavior, all working against the creative and cooperative side of city life, all bringing one civilization after another to ruin. This was the fundamental contradiction. the gains of urban cooperation were repeatedly offset by the destruction of war. Thriving cities gave aggression a visible prize that had never existed before. Gold and grain, tools and jewels stocked in the citadel. War and domination, rather than peace and cooperation, were woven into the original design of the city. The walled perimeter was both a display of protection and a provocation. Once war took hold, the enemy of every city was another city, under another god, claiming equal powers. Rulers from Mesopotamia to Egypt boasted on tablets and monuments of personally torturing enemy captives. The city became a standing military force. An ever larger share of its industrial output went to manufacturing weapons, the Bronze Age chariot, the battering ram. We can still see this ancient warfare in the layers of destruction that archaeologists uncover. The list of early cities destroyed soon after they were built is disturbingly long. At the city Troy, we still see a massive destruction layer marked by fire and buried treasure. At Eridu, early temple layers show signs of rapid rebuilding. At Byblos, a key trading city on the Phoenician coast, we still find evidence of cycles of destruction and reconstruction. One artifact captures this duality perfectly: the Standard of Ur. A small mosaic box found in Ur's royal cemetery depicts war on one side and peace on the other. Soldiers and chariots trampling enemies, musicians playing, rulers feasting. Civilization and destruction, side by side, in a single object. Urban form and institutional life were shaped from the very beginning by the logic of war. Ramparts, towers, canals, moats. These became the classic features of historic cities. And the physical structure perpetuated a mindset: isolation, imperiousness, readiness for conflict. War concentrated power in the hands of a weapons-bearing minority, backed by a priesthood wielding sacred authority and guarding scientific insights. Beneath all the technical innovations of war lay an ancient, irrational belief: only through sanctioned human suffering can the city be safeguarded. These are complicated episodes of city history. No matter how many good things the city has produced, it has also served, through most of its history, as a tool for organized violence and a machine for spreading war. As Plato wrote in the Laws, in reality, every city is in a natural state of war with every other. From the beginning, and as we still see today, the city has embodied a contradiction: that one group's freedom often requires another's suppression. Before the city, early humans had been smart enough to dominate every natural opponent. But now they had created a new kind of threat: other humans, another tribe, under another god, in another city, capable of attacking without provocation. Yet again and again, the human drive to cooperate has drawn people back to the ruins to repair devastated cities. Cities have repeatedly outlived the military empires that threatened to destroy them forever. Cities like Athens, Damascus, Jerusalem, rebuilt again and again, still standing on their original sites. The persistent failures of urban life might well have led us to forsake the city altogether. But cities have always been able to count on one renewable resource: the constant arrival of new life, fresh and unrefined, from remote towns and campuses. People full of raw energy, hope, and faith, renewing the city with their labor, and even more, with their ambitions. In the next episode, we'll explore the fundamental elements of architectural design and urban design, and the social structures that would shape cities for millennia to come. Thanks for watching City Design. See you next time as we keep exploring how we shape cities and how cities shape us.